Right guys, this is the end of Tuesday. It is 5:44 p.m. and I'm still here. I've been uploading some stuff onto the YouTube and doing some website work today, and I thought I would talk about skate sharpening. A lot of people that come into the store don't know their grind. They don't know the difference between a depth of hollow or a radius or a foot radius, stuff like that. So it's time to get technical. So if you see me looking above you, I'm looking at my laptop screen. I'm not the best at reading, so I'm quite dyslexic, so I'm going to do my best. I'm on the Wasota skate sharpening website. Shout out Wasota. It's a brand I haven't used before. Their knowledge of the product is quite good, same as Blade Master. I love Blade Master equipment. Blade Master in my opinion is the best. Wasota is obviously quite good as well from what I've heard. Obviously it's more aimed at, say for example, home users. So what they're basically saying is, skate sharpening 101, the radius of your skate blade can be described as a hollow that is ground into the bottom of your blades during the sharpening that gives you a pronounced inside and outside edge. From grade school math, you may remember that a 2-inch circle will have a 1-inch radius and a 1-inch circle will have a 1/2-inch radius, and a 3/4 inch circle will have a 3/8 radius, etc. The diamond dresser tool on any skate sharpening machine will dress and shape the face of the grinding wheel. The curvature of the shape of the radii between 1/4 and 1/4, the radius of the grinding wheel, is transferred to the skate blade by grinding. So as you've seen me before, what I do when I go to do a skate sharpening, if you come in and you ask for a 1/2 inch, you'll see me resetting the stone if it's not already set to a 1/2 inch, but you'll see me setting the stone to a 1/2 inch radius. Now what that means is, what I'm doing is I'm using the radius arm, putting it onto the machine, using the diamond quill and cutting a semicircle onto the face of the disc that's for sharpening. Now that is then transferred onto your skate, which then I'll put this on the screen as well so you can see this at the same time, obviously, as me reading it. But one of the other things we'll talk about is the radius of hollow. I'll show a couple of pictures of that as well, what it looks like, what the difference in grinds are, what's more bite, less bite. You'll be able to see that while I'm talking. You'll also be able to see the difference between a good edge and a bad edge, and a good sharpening and a bad sharpening. I'm going to borrow some of their information, so you say, so bear with me. So this brings me to the next part, the even edges and the uneven edges. If your edges are uneven, you're going to find that the high edge is going to be too sharp and the low edge is going to be too blunt. It's going to feel like they're off. It's not going to feel like they're properly sharpened, okay? So a lot of the time, again, if you come into my store, you'll see me in between every pass or every other pass, you'll see me putting an edge checker on there to make sure that the skate blade is level. It's something that a lot of players like, is obviously having level edges, but it also has a performance benefit as well to the fact of your edges. If you've got an edge that's way too sharp and you go to stop, sometimes you can catch your edge, you can hurt yourself, you could maybe trip up and hit the boards. If you've got a dull edge where you go into a corner and you go to turn, you'll find that edge could go away from you completely and you could again fall, you could hurt yourself or someone else. So even edges are crucial for the performance in your skating. If you find the uneven edges, the higher edge will seem way too sharp, as I've just said, the lower edge will seem way too dull. You may experience this before. If you can imagine how difficult it would be to make a simple manoeuvre on skates with uneven edges, what that means is again, if you have your inside edges are high and your outside edges are low, you will find you'll be able to push no problem, but when it comes to you turning on your edges, that's when you're going to have an issue. You're going to find that that's not there, so the grip is not going to be there and you might slide out. With any skate sharpening machine, most of the portable machines, or most of the big machines like the big Blade Master machine that I've got, the holder will allow for some adjustment up and down with regards to the blade to be able to make sure that you're getting a level edge. Now again, this is why you see me checking the edges constantly. To put that into perspective, the average piece of paper is about 0.004 thick. Well, that might not seem a lot. The decent skater may easily notice the difference of an error of 0.0004 when skating. Okay, so what that means is if you can find, I'll show you on the picture on the screen now, this should be of the skate level. If you look at the skate level, the top one says even, and on that even edge you can see it's perfectly flat, it's perfectly even. Now there's not just one balance point or even area that you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at the toe, you're going to be looking at the middle of the blade, and you're also going to be looking at the heel area of the blade as well when you sharpen skates. Now if you look at the next picture, which is obviously the one below, 0.003 off, you can see that that edge is going to have a slightly different shape. Now that different shape is going to be high edge on one side and low edge on the other, which means that you're going to be sharper on one edge than the other edge, and that is not good for skating. And the reason why that's not good for skating is, again, like I've said, you could have one sharp edge and one dull edge. That's not going to be helping with any performance. In a straight line with sharp skates, yes, like I said, if you've got your inside edges are too sharp, you'll find you've got plenty of push for your gliding, stuff like that. But then when it comes to you trying to stop, you might find it difficult because you usually stop on your inside edge as well. Your outside edge, if you're going to then take a turn, you're going to find that that outside edge could maybe slide away from you. So this next part brings me to the maximising your speed. The finish of your skate blade refers to how smooth and clean the bottom of your skate blade is after sharpening. Now again, if you've ever had your skate sharpening from me or a good professional sharpener, you will find that it's very, very smooth. If you have a look at this picture here, poor finish, as you can see, what that is classed as is chatter marks, ripples, or what I call it orange peel effect. So it looks like the peel of an orange on the bottom of your steel. If you have that on your sharpening, you will find that you're then fighting against it. It's actually causing you more friction with the ice, and your gliding's not going to be as smooth and as clean as possible. If you have this finish, the proper finish, as I'll show on screen, you will find that you will be able to glide a lot longer and it will be less effort to skate. Now obviously skating is going to be hard at the best of times, but what I'm meaning is that you should find if you've got level edges and you have a smooth, consistent grind or polish on the bottom of the steel, it should last a lot longer. That's one. Two, you're going to find that when you take a stride, you will glide a lot longer and you're not going to be as slow on the ice because you're going to have to work harder with a smooth, with a poor finish. Now, one of the options, or a couple of the options that I do, standard sharpening for me is, if you come in and you ask me for a standard sharpening, I will sharpen your skates at whatever you ask for. If you don't know your grind, I will talk to you about it and I will tell you the benefits of, say for example, a 3/8 over a 1/2 inch. Or if you find that you are finding the 1/2 inch too not sharp enough, too dull, but the 3/8 too sharp, I would then put you in a 7/16. This is one of the things that you would find that would help talking to someone that has a pro store or a pro shop. Now, with regards to the sharpening finish, all sharpenings that I do have an oil finish. What that means is I use a high grade ceramic disc from Blade Master. It's the yellow one, which is probably one of the most expensive discs. A lot of people will say that they don't need them, and at pro shops they're able to get good finishes and stuff like that out of the ruby discs or what have you. I just personally feel that my skates have never been as crisp and as smooth when I use the yellow. So the yellow disc, in my opinion, it just gives me the best finish. It gives you nice glide, it gives you edge retention, and it's a nice finish on your steel. Now don't get me wrong, I do use green discs as well if the yellow discs are out of stock in the UK supplier, but the green discs are slightly different because they cut slightly colder, but they don't give as good of a glide. You have to use maybe a cutting compound on them to be able to allow them to get the best glide possible. But this then brings me to my next addition to what I've been doing recently. I've been testing a couple of different materials, polishing compounds and stuff like that to put on the blade to try and see if I can get even more glide to try and make it as mirror finish as possible. And what I've found is Blade Master do a cutting compound, which what you do is you get your skate all leveled off and you're just about to do your final pass. You would then put oil on your blade, and then you would touch this polishing compound off of the disc that you're sharpening with. It then puts a small film or small layer on your disc. Yes, it can be messy, and yes, you can find it can cause chatter marks on the next sharpening that you're going to do, but it's just the way I do it. I prefer to be as accurate as possible. So I'll reset the stone, put the polishing compound on, put oil on the disc, and then I'll obviously do a nice slow smooth pass, which usually gives you a really high polish finish, and that's obviously what I pride myself on with my Sharpens. So the next thing I'm going to say is, if you then look at your skate sharpenings and you see marks on your steel. So example being, I'm looking at this steel just now just to see, I've got a couple of steels here. If you can see here, it might be a bit too close, there's a little bit of rust on there. Now when you go to skate on that, that should come off, but you might find that your blades are a bit sticky to start with. If it doesn't come off, you have to have it put through the cross grind, which is what you would usually do when you first get your brand new skates. You would obviously have your skates cross ground. The reason being for that is, if you can imagine, when they come out of the factory, they're not cut flat, they're kind of more arced. So you have to run them through the cross grind to make sure you've got a level edge, two level edges, so you can then run them through the finishing head. Now again, if you decide that you're not going to do that, it will cost you multiple passes to be able to get your skates perfectly level and sharpened, and you might still have an issue with regards to a low edge or a flat spot because they haven't been cross ground. So basically the advantages of cross grinding a skate is basically making sure that there's no discrepancies in the blade, i.e. flat spots. You're basically making the blade the same size the whole way along the blade, to make sure that you get a uniform finish. Now obviously these blades look okay other than a little bit of rust, but what I will suggest is, if you then look at your blade into the light, if you hold your steel up like this, or your skate, and you have a look at it, shut one eye and have a look along your edge. My opinion is your edge should look like a black line in both sides. Now if you have a look at that edge and you see that there's white scratches, or say for example part of the edge is rolled over, if you see scuffs, if you see chunks of your blade missing, that's when you need to get your skates sharpened. 9 times out of 10 what will need to happen is they'll need to be cross ground and put back to basically factory reset on them before you put your new edges back on them. It's very easy to tell when you need your skate sharpened. One, you'll step on the ice and your skates will slide away from you, or two, you'll find that you're digging in too much. You might have a raggedy part of, say for example, you stand on concrete. A lot of rinks where we skate in Scotland have, basically before you step on at the gate, there is a piece of rubber that's missing, and you usually catch it on that, or you'll catch it on metal bolts, things around the ice rink, like small stones, dirt, what have you. You'll find that will cause an issue with your grind. Now as I say, if you hold your steel up and have a look at it and you've got black straight uniformed edges, that's fine, but if there's any white marks on it usually, or any scuff marks, that's usually time for you to get your skate sharpened. So with all of that said, what I'm going to say is, what we tend to advise our customers is anywhere between 8 to 10 hours before you would get your skates sharpened again. If you're finding that you can go 8 to 10 hours and you've still got grip, by all means go another hour, go another session. But what you tend to find is the kind of industry standard, in my opinion, is 8 to 10 hours of skating before obviously needing them redone. Now that can be depending obviously how much skating you're actually doing, how aggressive you're skating, what kind of skating you're doing. If you're doing figure skating and you're doing a lot of jumps and spins, things like that, you find that a lot of the time when skaters jump, they will clip their heels and they'll have discrepancies in their steel where they'll have to have them cross ground out, which will stop them from gliding properly. So that is something you need to look for. Again, if you're playing hockey, you're on and off a bench all the time, watch your feet. If there is a open area of concrete in the rubber, or if you can get through the rubber onto the concrete, I would advise that if you stand on something, you usually would have to have them checked, or you would have to have them sharpened again if that's the case. Now this was a question that was obviously asked by Kenny Burnley, who's one of the local coaches. He wanted to use this as a training tool for his kids that he coaches and his adults, because a lot of people don't know enough about skate sharpening. What I would also suggest is, if you are a skater and you're an avid skater, you go a lot of the time, learn what your grind is. A lot of the time we have customers that come in and just say, just sharpen my skates. That's okay, that's fine, that's not a problem. We will usually put our standard sharpening, which is a 3/8 of an inch radius of hollow on them. Sometimes that can be too sharp for people, sometimes that can be too dull for people. It just obviously depends. Now, if you find that is the benchmark, that the 3/8 is too sharp for you, then obviously we can put you down a 16th at a time, down to what you feel more comfortable in. If the 3/8 of an inch is not sharp enough, we would then put you a 16th up to like a 5/16 or a quarter, which is a full step up to obviously get you a little bit more grip if you felt like you were sliding. But there is reasons for people skating in sharp skates and reasons for people not skating in sharp skates. What you usually find is people with knee issues, hip issues or back issues will prefer a slightly sharper skate due to the fact of having a little bit more grip and a little bit more control. Skaters that are a little bit more nimble will usually go for something like a 3/4, a 5/8 or a 1/2 inch at the sharper end of things, just obviously because they like the glide a little bit more and they like to be able to move in, say for example when it comes to a punch turn, the punch turns and stuff like that will be a lot easier to do than doing it on a 3/8. That then brings me to my 2 pence about automated machines. There is good points for automated machines and bad points for automated machines. Good points are if there's not a skate sharpener that is competent enough and in your area, and you decide to use an automated machine, yes, by all means it will get you by. But what I personally find is the discs are not of high enough quality to be able to sharpen the steel for your steel to last a little bit longer. Example, the disc I use, the yellow disc, gives true sharp uniformed edges. It's smooth and edge retention on the kind of sharpenings lasts a little bit longer. We've found over the last 13 years or since Sparks came out, specifically when people get their skates done with a Sparks machine or a ProSharp automated machine, they find that they're not getting the edge retention that they would need. It will get them by for maybe a game and they will then have to have them sharpened again, or it will get them by for maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours skating before they need to get them sharpened again. Pros and cons of the portable machines, the portable automated machines, shall you say. You can take them with you, you can go anywhere with them. You can put them down in the dressing room and you can fire your skate in, press the start button and it does it within a couple of passes. My issue that I have seen with these skate machines is they do not pick up the bend in a blade. That is where someone who is a professional like myself would be able to look at the steel and determine if there's a bend in it and be able to accommodate for the bend. Now 90% of skates that come out of the factory do not have straight steels, in my opinion. I've found that there is one of the leading manufacturers. I had heard rumours before, I don't know if it's true or not, but from what I've seen it was bordering on true. Not true the brand, but true what the rumour was. Basically every left skate had a bend or an arc in the blade because the holder had been the white part of the skate that holds the blade had been fitted wrong. It was basically curving, so that then meant that you had a high edge in the outside and you had a low edge in the inside every time that you were getting your skate sharpened, which meant that it was no use for anyone because when you were trying to push off you were finding you were sliding. Now I got a pair of skates, I will refrain from saying what model they were, and I ended up having to change my holders, and the reason why I had to change the holders is because the holder was bent from factory. It was put on bent and obviously then it would not snap back to the straight shape. So what I actually had to do was take the holder off the skate and then I had to fill the holes where the holder was held on by the rivets with epoxy, and then I had to re-drill and replace the holder with a new holder, which I put a CCM holder on it. That's all I'm going to say. You can pick, it could be Graf, it could be Bauer, it could be whatever else, whatever holder you decide. But for me, I'd been skating in CCMs the season previous and I had a couple of spare sets of holders, so that's what I went for because I had spare steels also. You're never going to get a blade that's perfectly straight, and if you do, it's a miracle, because most of the steels that I have, I don't sharpen them in my skates due to the fact that every set of holders have been off from the factory. Even sometimes when you do the work on them yourself and you set them and they're perfectly perfectly straight, you can go on the ice and someone hits you with a shot, someone hits you with a pass, and then that can throw your holder off, and then you're having to take the holder off and redo your holder, or the placement on it. So again, that's something to look at when it comes to sharpenings, and a lot of these times you can find that it can throw your sharpening off as well. But hopefully this has been a little bit of insight into skate sharpening and what the differences are between a good finish, bad finish, a high edge and a low edge. These are things for you to look at when you're getting your skates done. Now obviously, again, like I say, when someone brings me in a set of skates and there's a bend in the blade, I will accommodate for it. What I'll do is I'll either trying to straighten the blade, or what I'll do is I will manipulate the holder to basically allow me to catch the high edge, so that you've got level edges the whole way along the bend. That's what I've found usually helps me the most when I've found like messing about with these things. Again, as I've said, I'm self-taught to an extent. Then I went and done a Blade Master qualification. Now you're talking I'd been sharpening for 7 or 8 years before I got the Blade Master qualification. But at the same point, there is a lot of people out there that don't know what they're doing, and that's when you can get caught out. And it's not me being disrespectful to people that don't know what they're doing. Everyone has to learn, and everyone is obviously going to make mistakes. Even I make mistakes to this day. But with regards to sharpening, you want to be able to use someone who has got experience.